The door slammed shut with a thunderous crack, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the pouring rain. I stood there on the cracked concrete stoop, my backpack slung over one shoulder, soaked through in seconds as water cascaded from the eaves like a merciless waterfall. "Go live in the streets, you useless failure!" My father's voice roared from behind the locked door, muffled but venomous, laced with the slur of too much whiskey. My mother's sobs filtered through, faint and theatrical, but I knew better. They were for show, a performance to absolve her of the guilt she'd never truly feel. I pounded on the wood, my fists raw and numb, screaming back words that dissolved into the storm. "You liars! You thieves!" But the house remained silent now, the lights flickering off one by one, as if I'd never existed inside those walls. Humiliation burned hotter than the cold rain sluicing down my neck, seeping into my collar and chilling my bones. How had it come to this? Me, Elena Ramirez, 22 years old, valedictorian of my high school class, the girl who'd worked 2 jobs through community college just to prove I wasn't the lazy dreamer they always called me. And now, discarded like yesterday's trash because I'd dared to uncover their secret. The betrayal hit like a gut punch. My parents, the ones who'd preached family loyalty above all, had been siphoning money from my grandmother's estate, the inheritance meant for me. I'd found the documents hidden in Dad's desk drawer while cleaning, forged signatures and emptied accounts staring back at me like accusatory eyes. When I confronted them, the masks cracked. Dad's rage, Mom's tears, and the ultimatum. "Get out, or we call the cops on you for snooping," he'd snarled. His breath reeking of defeat masked as authority. I stumbled down the steps, the neighborhood streetlights blurring through my tears. The rain pounded the asphalt, turning puddles into mirrors that reflected my distorted face. Puffy eyes, matted hair, a mouth twisted in silent fury. Cars hissed by on the wet road, their headlights slicing through the darkness like judgmental stares. I had nowhere to go. Friends, scattered after college, too busy with their own lives to take in a sudden refugee. Relatives, distant aunts and uncles who'd sided with my parents in every family spat, echoing their mantra that I was too sensitive, too ambitious for my own good. The weight of it all pressed down, a crushing resentment bubbling up from my chest. They'd stolen my future, piece by piece, and now they'd stolen my home. Part of me wanted to curl up right there on the sidewalk, let the hypothermia take me as a final fuck you to their indifference. But another part, sharper and colder, whispered, "Not yet. Make them pay." I trudged through the downpour, my sneakers squelching with every step, the backpack growing heavier with waterlogged clothes and a few crumpled 20s I'd grabbed on the way out. The city loomed around me, Chicago's South Side, with its graffiti-splattered brick walls and chain-link fences rattling in the wind. Neon signs flickered from corner stores, promising warmth I couldn't afford. I ducked into an all-night diner, the bell jingling like a mocking laugh as I pushed through the door. The air inside was thick with grease and coffee, a stark contrast to the storm outside. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag reading Marge glanced up from her crossword. "You look like drowned rat, hon coffee?" I nodded, sliding into a booth, my wet clothes sticking to the vinyl seat with a sticky squelch. As she poured the steaming black liquid, I stared at my reflection in the window. Pale skin, dark circles, a fire in my eyes that scared even me. Heartbreak clawed at my throat. These were my parents, the people who'd bandaged my scraped knees as a kid, who'd cheered, half-heartedly, at my graduation. But layered beneath that was the resentment, festering like an open wound. They'd always favored control over love, Dad with his iron-fisted rules, Mom with her passive-aggressive sighs. The inheritance theft was just the culmination, a betrayal that exposed the rot. In my mind, fantasies swirled, storming back, keying their precious SUV, screaming their secrets to the neighbors. But doubt crept in. What if I was wrong? What if the documents were a misunderstanding? No, I'd double-checked. The numbers didn't lie. They'd gambled it away on Dad's sure things at the track, Mom's shopping sprees to fill the void. Sipping the bitter coffee, I pulled out my phone. Battery at 12%, no missed calls. Course not. They'd probably already changed the locks, convinced themselves I was the problem. Anger surged, hot and primal, making my hands shake. I imagined their faces when I exposed them. Publicly, painfully. But how? I had nothing. No money, no roof, just this burning obsession taking root. Guilt flickered too. Was revenge worth becoming like them, twisted and vengeful? Pushed it down. They'd humiliated me, stripped me bare. This wasn't just anger. It was survival. Hours blurred in the diner. Marge refilling my cup with pitying glances until the manager shooed me out at dawn. The rain had eased to a drizzle, the city awakening with honking horns and the metallic screech of L trains overhead. I wandered to a homeless shelter I'd seen advertised, the line already snaking around the block, faces etched with stories I didn't want to hear. Inside, the air smelled of unwashed bodies and institutional bleach, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry bees. A volunteer handed me a thin blanket and pointed to a cot in a crowded room. Lying there, staring at the water-stained ceiling, my mind raced. Denial gave way to planning. I'd get a job, save up, dig deeper into their finances. Maybe hack their emails. Wait, no, that was too far. Or was it? Moral conflict gnawed at me. Revenge felt justified, but what if it consumed me? Still, the image of Dad's smug face, Mom's feigned innocence, fueled the fire. Days turned into a grinding routine. I landed a gig waitressing at a dive bar downtown, the kind with sticky floors and patrons who tipped in leers. The work was exhausting, balancing trays laden with foaming beers, dodging grabby hands, the cacophony of laughter and clinking glasses drowning out my thoughts during shifts. But at night, in the shelter's dim light, I plotted. I'd borrowed a library card from a sympathetic bunkmate and spent afternoons poring over public records on a creaky computer. There it was, liens on the house, unpaid bills stacking up. They were deeper in debt than I'd imagined. A cold resolve settled in, pushing aside the heartbreak. I fantasized about anonymous tips to creditors, watching from afar as their world crumbled. But doubt lingered. Would that make me the monster? One evening, as I wiped down tables amid the haze of cigarette smoke, despite the ban, my phone buzzed. Mom's number. My heart lurched, regret. An apology. I answered, voice steady despite the tremor. Elena. Honey, come home. We miss you. Her tone was saccharine, laced with that familiar manipulation. Miss me. Or miss the free labor. I snapped, resentment boiling over. Silence, then Dad's voice snatched the phone. You ungrateful bitch. Don't call here again. Blick. The humiliation reignited, fresh and raw. That night, I scrawled notes in a pilfered notebook. Contacts for lawyers, ways to trace embezzled funds. Obsession gripped me. Sleep came in fits, haunted by dreams of confrontation. Weeks passed, the city's rhythm becoming my own. Bus exhaust choking the air. Sirens wailing like distant screams, the tactile grit of sidewalks underfoot. I moved to a run-down studio apartment, paid for with scraped-together tips, its walls thin enough to hear neighbors' arguments. Isolation bred introspection. Why had they done it? Dad's gambling addiction, Mom's denial, motivations that made them human, flawed, but not excusable. Guilt warred with resolve. I pictured their faces when I struck back, a mix of shock and recognition. Subtle hints emerged in my actions. An anonymous email to their bank querying discrepancies, watching from a park bench as repo men eyed their car. Tension built slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Then the turning point. A letter arrived at my old address, forwarded by a kind neighbor. It was from a lawyer. Grandma's estate had more layers. Hidden assets they'd overlooked. My name was on them. Heart pounding, I realized. This was my weapon. But using it meant crossing lines, becoming the betrayer. Fear mingled with excitement. The plan crystallized, morally gray but irresistible. As part one faded into the shadows of my cramped room, the suspense coiled tighter. I was no longer the victim. Revenge was calling, and I was ready to answer. The lawyer's office smelled of polished wood and old paper, a far cry from the stale beer of my bar shifts. I sat across from Mr. Hargrove, a balding man in a rumpled suit. his desk cluttered with files that held the remnants of my grandmother's life. "You're entitled to this trust fund, Elena," he said, sliding a document toward me. "Your parents were executors, but there's evidence of mismanagement." His voice was matter-of-fact, but to me it was a thunderclap. The amount, $150,000, stared back in black ink, a lifeline laced with venom. My hands trembled as I signed, resentment surging anew. They'd stolen scraps. This was the feast they'd hidden. But doubt whispered, "Use it for good, walk away."
Well,
The obsession had taken root, twisting into cold calculation. This money would fund my retribution, subtle and surgical. Back in my studio, the walls closing in like a confessional, I paced the threadbare carpet, its fibers rough under my bare feet. Heartbreak had evolved into a hollow ache, guilt shadowing every step. What if they were suffering too? Dad's drinking, Mom's isolation. Were they victims of their own demons? But the memory of that rainy night, their door slamming shut, drowned out the empathy. I'd build my life first, a facade of success, then strike when they least expected. Inner conflict raged. Revenge felt like justice, but at what cost to my soul? Fantasies shifted from crude sabotage to elegant ruin, exposing their debts publicly, forcing them into the streets they'd condemned me to. I quit the bar, enrolling in night classes for business administration, the fluorescent-lit classrooms buzzing with ambition. Days blurred into a montage of lectures and part-time gigs, tutoring kids in math, the irony not lost on me as I taught fractions while plotting divisions in my family. Sensory details grounded me. The chalky scent of whiteboards, the click-clack of keyboards in computer labs, the bitter tang of cheap campus coffee fueling late-night schemes. I tracked my parents discreetly, driving by the house under cover of dusk, noting the for sale sign creeping up like a omen. They were unraveling, whispers from old neighbors confirming Dad's job loss, Mom's pill dependency. Satisfaction bloomed, but so did moral qualms. Was I enjoying their pain too much? Dialogue came in fragments, tense and revealing. A chance encounter at the grocery store. Mom, basket laden with discount cans, her eyes widening. "Elena, you look well." Her voice quavered, a crack in the armor. "Better without you," I replied coolly, suppressed rage simmering. "We made a mistake," she whispered, glancing around as if spies lurked in the produce aisle. "Come home." Manipulation dripped from her words, heightening the tension. I leaned in, voice low. "Mistakes have consequences, Mom. Yours are coming." Her gasp echoed in my mind as I walked away, heart pounding with a mix of triumph and fear. Suspense built in quiet moments. Anonymous calls to creditors, hinting at fraud without implicating myself. I watched from afar as collection notices piled on their porch, the wind scattering them like confetti of doom. Planning consumed me. Hiring a private investigator with trust fund cash, uncovering Dad's affair, Mom's complicity in covering it. Layers peeled back. Their betrayal wasn't just financial. It was a web of lies sustaining a crumbling marriage. My resolve hardened, but guilt nipped at the edges. What if exposure destroyed them utterly? Doubt fueled nightmares. Me alone in a mirror, face twisted like Dad's in rage. Months later, the pieces aligned. I'd graduated, landed a job at a financial firm downtown, the glass-walled office overlooking the city's sprawl, a symbol of my rise from the ashes. The atmosphere was crisp, air-conditioned hum, clacking heels on marble floors, the faint ozone of printers spitting reports. Here I honed my skills, learning to trace funds like a hunter tracking prey. Inner thoughts swirled. This is for Grandma, for me. But obsession blurred lines. Revenge became my identity, cold and unyielding. The climax approached slowly, tension ratcheting with each step. I arranged a reconciliation dinner at a neutral restaurant, the dim lighting casting long shadows over white tablecloths. They arrived haggard, Dad's tie askew, Mom's makeup failing to hide the bags under her eyes. "We're sorry," Dad muttered, avoiding my gaze, the clink of silverware punctuating the unease. "Sorry doesn't fix theft," I said evenly, sliding photos across the table. Bank statements, a fair evidence. Their faces paled, the air thick with suppressed rage. What do you want? Mom pleaded, voice cracking. Justice, I replied, but inside fear churned. Had I gone too far? As plates cleared, I revealed the plan. I'd bought their debts anonymously, now holding the liens. Sign over the house, or I go public. Shock rippled through them, Dad's fist clenching the napkin. You bitch, he growled, echoing that fateful night. But Mom's eyes held something deeper. Resignation, perhaps regret. The moral grayness hit me. This wasn't poetic justice, just mirrored pain. The twist came swift and shattering. As they signed, trembling hands on paper, Mom whispered, "We did it for you, Elena. The money. It was to pay off threats. Your father's gambling debts to dangerous people." Proof tumbled out. A hidden file on her phone, emails from loan sharks. Betrayal inverted. They'd sacrificed my inheritance to protect me from their mess, throwing me out to keep me safe from fallout. Heartbreak crashed anew, resentment crumbling into guilt. I'd become the villain in my own story, obsessing over half-truths. In the end, I tore up the papers, walking away into the night, the city's lights blurring through tears. Revenge's pursuit had hollowed me, the dramatic payoff a mirror to my flaws. They were flawed, yes, but so was I. The streets welcomed me once more, not as exile but as choice, freedom from the cycle, a twist of self-forgiveness amid the ruins.